Boom. Okay. So, welcome to everybody and those who may join us. Good to see you. Thank you for taking the time. I hope everybody got the message. For the next 2 Wednesdays, we will not be meeting. Next Wednesday, my wife and I will be celebrating our 29th anniversary with great joy and blessings, and great thanks to God for that milestone. The next Wednesday night is one of the nights of Hanukkah. So there are all kinds of family things going on, and that Wednesday night is a family kind of an occasion. So, and then we'll meet again to not the next two, but the third Thursday night from now, which comes out to be that's right. Not sure what that date is. The December 29, 28, something like that. Anyway, last December 24. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, so it's the last Wednesday night of December is when we will reconvene after tonight. And so hopefully that's all somewhere on your calendar as to when we meet and when we meet again. So today we're going to look at chapter 4, and I think it's teaching number 12. If you're on the Chabad link, I think it's teaching number 12. It could be number 10. I'm not exactly sure. For some reason here, I didn't put down what the Chabad numbering is because there are many Pirke Avot ethics of the fathers groups that number the Mishnah, the teaching in a different, not a different order, but they just sometimes they chop one into two and then becomes two teachings. Anyway, it's chapter 4, either 10 or 12, where we find a parallel teaching. We ended off last week. We had a very beautiful teaching about humility. And we asked the question as we were closing, is it a good idea to think of yourself as having no humility and just being a welcome mat to everybody, where you feel that there's nothing special about you, nothing makes you distinct or unique? Like, is that a good feeling? So I think we said psychologically that's not a good feeling because you don't want to be that to anybody, or especially to yourself, to be a nobody and to think that you don't deserve anything. But we also said that it may not be a good idea spiritually to think of yourself in that way. And I don't know if we got to this teaching, but one teaching that we closed off with, if we actually did it, excuse me, last week, is where we find in one of our Jewish texts, it says, um, every person should carry one card or one piece of paper in each pocket. On one piece of paper, it should say, "For me, the entire world was created," right? Massive ego and arrogance. And on the other piece of paper, it should say, "I am but dust and ashes." So, as you've probably guessed, these are two extremes. They are polar opposites. You're either the gift to the world, especially if you wear a bow tie, you've come with a bow, you know? So either you are the whole world was created for me, and on the other side, I am but dust and ashes. And one of our jobs as people of faith is to try to balance these two, try to balance the arrogant part of the first message with the very humble part of the second message. And that kind of balance is not always easy to do. We're sometimes heavy on the one side or heavy on the other. And as I think I did close off with this quote last week that talked about humility, where the saying is, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And I think that's kind of where we ended off. Excuse me, last week's teaching. Pardon my hoarseness once again. So, where we start off this week, we find a parallel teaching about humility um, in this particular teaching and see how it compares and contrasts to what we've learned from Rabbi Levitas last week about humility. So, this lesson of humility is about Rabbi Meir, who was a student of Rabbi Akiva, the well-known Rabbi Akiva, whom we've quoted several different times. His saying is, I'll say it in Hebrew and then translate it. Vehevesh vel ruach bifnei kol adam. Have humility, be humble. Develop that characteristic of humility before every person. A little bit different, a little shade of difference from the previous lesson on humility, which just said, be humble, work on that trait, on that capacity of humility, and certain gifts and blessings abound if you're able to do that. This is a little bit more pointed. Be humble, work on your humility with each and every person. Be humble before every person. So, what exactly does that mean? What did that add to what we already understood from last week? So, some interpret this as a kind of humility you should develop to learn humbly from any person, meaning whether you're talking to somebody older than you or younger than you, so they can be 102 or 3, doesn't matter. A person who is more righteous than you in your estimation, or somebody who is less righteous than you, somebody who is of your religion, somebody could be of any other religion. And the lesson is that from humility, you can learn from everybody. Now we had a touch of this at the very beginning of chapter 4, where it says, "Who is wise? One who can learn from everybody." So this Rabbi Meir is not connecting it necessarily to wisdom, but is connecting it to humility. The more humble you are, the more open you are to what anybody can possibly offer you in terms of life lessons, life wisdom, etc. So that's his take on humility. The Talmud states that the Second Holy Temple was destroyed in the year 70 by the Romans due to the sin of baseless hatred. What does that mean? Baseless hatred. A tone of utter disrespect and animosity that people had for each other. Now, that's a very interesting thing um, because to think that the kind of animosity that people had towards each other, and we're talking there mostly about Jewish people. The temple was the Jewish place, gathering of worship, inspiration, etc. And the Talmud is teaching that, yeah, you may want to blame the Romans for destroying the Second Temple, which that's what happened historically. Somebody asked you who destroyed the Second Temple? The easy answer, one word, the Romans. Actually, two words, the Romans. However, the Talmud rabbis always like to find a deeper layer. And they say, we know what's written on the surface, it's the Romans. But now the question is really, why was the temple destroyed? We know who destroyed it, but really, why did they destroy it? They loved the building, the Romans loved the building, then you don't destroy it. So that's a very interesting approach that the Talmud often has. We know the historical fact, but what underpins that historical fact? So the Talmud says, what underlies the historical fact of the Romans destroying the Second Temple is the fact that the Jewish people did not deserve it to still be standing. Why? Because whatever its power is clearly wasn't working. How do we know? Because there was baseless hatred amongst the Jewish people at the time. So if Jews, if you didn't learn the lesson of baseless love and you're baselessly hating each other, despising each other, insulting each other, marginalizing each other, you don't really need a holy temple. Because if you plugged into the holy temple and its purpose, you would not behave that way. So how do I know you don't need it? Because look at how you're behaving. So that's kind of like a very interesting take, again, that the Talmud often does when it tries to describe really why did something happen. We know something did, but why? What was the underpinning? So you can say, well, the Romans were a lot stronger. They defeated us with strength. Even that would not be enough for the rabbinical mind, the Talmudic mind. Well, because they were stronger? Why did God allow them to be stronger? Why didn't He allow us to be stronger? So again, you kind of fall back into the same underpinning. What was really the reason that it was destroyed? And it was because of, say, the rabbis, it was because of baseless hatred, pure and simple. So to say that it was destroyed by a specific overarching sin in those days is to suggest that the reason God did not protect the temple from Roman hatred is because they didn't merit that kind of protection due to their behavior of baseless hatred. However, as many who hear this phrase, baseless hatred, and here's where it's coming to the point regarding humility, those who hear the phrase baseless hatred will point out and quickly point out that it's rare to have baseless hatred. It's rare that hatred has no base to it. It has no focal point to it. It may not be the right reason, may not be a good reason, but they would almost say, show me somebody who hates somebody for no particular reason. In other words, that person would say, you know why I hate that person? Because of, or because of their different, or because of the way they, or because of how they. So it's hard to say it's baseless. It's usually based on something, even though that something may be innocuous and may be silly. It may be a stupid thing to base your feelings about somebody else on. But it's hard to say that hatreds are baseless. Uh, why do I hate my Jewish neighbor? Did he ever do anything bad to me? No. But his grandfather, who I never met, the Jews before this neighbor, behaved in a certain way towards my great grandfather, and I can't stand them ever since that happened. So, is it baseless about the neighbor that you don't like? Can't say it's baseless. It's based on something, but it may not be a worthwhile detail enough to base a whole hatred on. So, again, people would say it's hard to say that hatred is baseless. It's usually connected to some even innocuous little detail. So something angers, triggers hatred, or whether it's legitimate or not. But realizing that, our sages offered another way to understand the Hebrew word for baseless, which is the word chinam. Chinam means free or having no base to it. And another word to read the same letters of chinam is the word chenam. You see how they even sound very similar. Chinam, chenam. Now we have to understand what does chenam mean. That connects in any way to our discussion. So if you substitute the word chenam, different punctuation, but it's the same four Hebrew letters, it comes out that it's not so much it was baseless hatred that caused people to dislike each other and therefore forfeit the Holy Temple. It was more that they disliked the charm or grace or that certain, as they say in French, je ne sais quoi. If you're familiar with that phrase, je ne sais quoi, which literally means I don't know what. What do you like about this person? You seem drawn to them. You know, Uh, exactly what it is, I don't know, but they have a certain je ne sais quoi. They have a certain undefinable, can't pin it down characteristic or trait that makes them likable. I don't know exactly what it is. That's the French. I don't know what it is, but there is a something there. So chenam means that an individual can have a certain charm or grace, um, a certain lovability about them, a certain specialness about them. So if so, what's the sin? If you just like somebody because of their certain whatever, or you dislike somebody because of a certain whatever that they have, it means to say that the second temple was destroyed because people in those days hated to see and acknowledge the goodness, the uniqueness, the specialness of other people. They were too jealous of others who were more loved, more adored, and more respected and successful than they were. They resented that chen that other people had. They were better, richer, better looking, more special, more unique, more adored. People would fall at their feet. When it comes to me, nobody pays me any attention. So they became jealous of those characteristics or features that made them wildly jealous. And so how does that connect to our lesson of humility? In general, wild jealous often stems from a lack of humility. So that's where the connection comes in. They failed to acknowledge that others had desirable qualities, and they envied other people's alluring characteristics. And so Rabbi Meir's lesson on the virtue of humility is a call to see others not as threats to your ego, but as human beings with feelings, hopes, fears, aspirations, struggles. And if you can deflate your ego and work on your humility, says Rabbi Meir, you can see the other as a friend and a comrade and not as a competition, because we're all in the same human boat together. So that's kind of how he ties that in. Um, when we're not humble enough, we become jealous of every good quality that other people have. If you are humble enough, you not only don't become jealous of other people's great qualities, you appreciate them. You would even compliment them and say, wow, you look what you did. If I saw what you did a few minutes ago. Wow, that's great. Look at you. You gave that person such comfort. You gave that person such attention. Wow, you are fantastic. So if you lack humility, everybody is going to get under your skin. If you are working on the characteristic of humility, you can appreciate everybody, you can learn from everybody, and you can even grow from the way other people behave. If not, if you have no humility, it's just you and what you think about yourself, and nobody else makes a difference. So, any reactions to that teaching? Any questions, comments? Uh, is he on the mark? Is he way off? Is he saying something that's hard to understand, maybe? Ryan, nice to have you. So, anybody want to say anything before we continue? Observation? Okay, good. So now we're going to go to teaching number 13. If you're on the Chabad website, you'll see teaching number 13. And this is um, a very well known in Jewish circles way long ago, second century, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He was a student of Rabbi Akiva, lived in the second century, um, and is identified with Kabbalah, mysticism. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is identified as the one who has had the most to do with the propagation of Kabbalah, of Jewish mystical thought. If you're familiar with a Jewish commemoration day, it's a holiday, but not like a biblical holiday. It's a holiday called Lag BaOmer. It comes right in between Passover and the holiday of Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, where we, as a Jewish community, celebrate the giving of the Torah. And in between there are 49 days, and the 50th day is the day that we celebrate the giving of the Torah. So during the first 32 days of that 49-day period, it was said that Rabbi Akiva's students died of a terrible plague. I have not been able to identify exactly which year that happened, or was it a combination of years, that 11,000 pairs of students of Rabbi Akiva died in a terrible, that's 22,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died in a terrible plague. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is connected to that 33rd day that we celebrate as a holiday, that we say that that was his, I'm not sure if his birthday or the day of his death, could have been both. And on that day, right before he died, he imparted all the great mystical teachings of the Torah to his students. And tradition has it that the sun did not go down until he finished all his teachings. So if you were to go to a Lag BaOmer celebration, you would see bonfires, you would see all kind of lights, etc. And the lights and the fires are supposed to imitate the glow of the day that didn't dissipate until he finally finished all his teachings. So that is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is a pretty big figure in Jewish thought, Jewish history, Jewish philosophy, etc. So he has a teaching that speaks of three crowns. We have alluded to this before, three crowns that a person can wear. A person can wear three different crowns. Can they wear other crowns? Yeah, he's not limiting us, but he's conceptually a person can aspire to wearing three different crowns. He will mention what these crowns are, and then he'll mention a fourth crown, which, as important as the other three are, will top either any of the three, or some commentaries say that fourth crown tops all three together. So that's kind of where this teaching is going. So he'll have three that he'll mention, define very nicely, and then say there's a fourth one that's the biggie. That's like the brass ring of them all. So here's what he calls them. He calls them the crown of Torah. So you say, ha ha, this is a very Jewish text. The crown of the Torah, that's Jewish. I would say that's right. We've known all along that Pirke Avot is a Jewish text. But we'd also known all along that you can generalize the teachings of Pirke Avot to be helpful to teach any other faith tradition as well. So when he says the crown of the Torah, if we wanted to generalize that, we would say a person of any faith who takes seriously their faith texts, whatever it is, that person can be said to wear the crown of their faith text. In Judaism, it would be the crown of the Torah. In other traditions, would be the crown of that religion's or tradition's faith text. So he identifies that crown as a serious student who not only wants to learn, but who wants to inculcate whatever he's learning and also is anxious to teach to others what he's learned. If you're doing that, you are wearing the crown of the Torah, or the crown of your faith-based text. Then he calls something else the crown of priesthood. So that's can be looked at as a very specific Jewish thing. Who were the priests? Who were the Kohanim in plural? Who was the Kohen? They were the functionaries in the Holy Temple. Along with the Levites, we had the Kohen, which in most translations in the Bible, it calls them the priests. But, we have a whole other conception of priest. But for some reason, the English translation usually uses the word priest. But who were the functionaries in the Holy Temple or in the sanctuary? They were the Levites and the Kohens, all of the priests of those days that were the holy functionaries. So if you were one of those holy functionaries, or in more modern days, if you're a clergy person, you're a rabbi, a minister, a priest, an imam, whoever, you could be said that if you take it seriously and you take your leadership seriously and your job obligation, etc., seriously, you could be said to be wearing the crown of priesthood. It's the crown of leadership. So that's two crowns: the crown of your faith-based text, if you're a serious student of it, the crown of being a functionary, a holy functionary in whatever tradition you are, and you remain a good example of that holiness. Unfortunately, a lot of people who represent holy sometimes struggle with a lot of challenges to remain holy. I don't know if I have to say anything more than that. In all religions, we found that in all religions, sometimes clergy have major challenges to, quote, keep their nose clean. It's not easy. I'm a clergy. Is my nose always clean? I hope so, but will somebody say, "Oh, I heard your video, and you said you are always clean as a clergyman"? Larry, I'm going to remind you about this and that, and that's when I say, "Oh, thank you very much for shooting down my ego," which I don't have because I'm all too humble. It's part of my humility is I have no ego. So he's got two crowns of the crown of being a serious student of the faith-based texts of your tradition, the crown of priesthood, or the crown of holiness, or the crown of leadership is another crown that a person can have. And then he says there's also the crown of kingship. Kingship. It's a kind of leadership, but it's a symbol of authority and respect. A crown may be inherited or earned. In some countries, maybe. Oh, I thought you were doing the money thing, Stephen. I thought you were. Sometimes kingship can be earned with a little cash. That's what I thought you were doing, but I see you're exercising your hands. Okay, misread that one. Okay, so yeah, I think in some traditions, kingship or leadership is passed from family member to family member. In many Hasidic dynasties, leadership passes from father to son to father to son to grandson, whatever. A lot of leadership in Hasidic dynasties stays in the same family. So sometimes it's inherited, sometimes you have to earn it. Just because you're the son of a great Hasidic rabbi doesn't mean that necessarily you're going to become the next Hasidic rabbi. You have to earn it. You can't just inherit it. Anyway, in certain countries, the same thing with kingship or leadership. Who becomes the next king is the son of this king. So, so he speaks about the crown of kingship, as described in the Bible, belongs to the house of David. That's where the kingship begins and will filter down through the Mashiach, the Messiah in our Jewish tradition. The Messiah will come from the house of David. Um, the crown of priesthood belongs to those who are descendants of Aaron, the high priest. So Aaron originally, like his brother Moses, was a Levite, but he was, for various reasons, given the title of a Kohen. He became what we would call a priest, a Kohen, and anybody who is a descendant of Aaron, the high priest, this is going back 3,300 and some odd years ago. Anybody who's a descendant of Aaron um, is a priest or a Kohen. This crown of the priestship, if you will, is like the crown of kingship, often in that it is hereditary. If you didn't come from the line of Aaron, you're not a Kohen. It's that simple. An interesting question is, how do you determine 3,000 years later who is a Kohen and who is a Levi, a Levite? How do you determine that? Do people carry around an ID card, social security card? Status, Levite. Status, Cohen. So how do you follow that line? How do you determine nowadays? So you would say, well, nowadays in the Jewish tradition, where is that relevant? So every time the Torah scroll is read, it's read on Monday mornings, Thursday morning, Shabbat afternoon, and Jewish holidays. Every time the Torah is read, the first call to the Torah, which is an honor, goes to the Kohen, if there is one. The next honor goes to the Levite, the Levi, and all the other honors can go to the plain bagels, the Israelites that have no particular specific status. So in our day, we also still need to know who's a Kohen, who's a Levi, who is a Levite. So it's still relevant, but it's an interesting question. How do you know who is and who isn't? One of the most popular ways to determine that, which is not doesn't really determine it, but at least it helps to deal with an answer, is if a person says, "I'm a Kohen," somebody comes into my synagogue. This happened very often. We would say, "Is there a Kohen in the house?" Maybe that morning, no Kohen came to worship, but somebody raises their hand and they say, a stranger came in from the street. I'm a Kohen. What, am I going to interview for the next half hour? Oh yeah? How about the and? If he says I'm a Kohen, well, we have to trust it. We go along with it. I'm a Levite. Okay, you get the second honor today. So there's no definitive way, except I will tell you that we have a relative in our extended family who is a specializes in eyes. Not an eye doctor, he's not an ophthalmologist. He specializes in being able to detect without the person saying to him what status he is, whether he is a Kohen or not, by looking at his eyes. Not with an implement. Maybe he does. I'm not aware of that. He could look at the eyes, the iris, the white, whatever, and he can survey through the eye certain features that determine this person is a Kohen. So I asked him one time, what's your record? How good are you? He says, well, I tell the people why I think they're a Kohen, and then I ask him, are you a Kohen? So I said, what's your record? He says, I'm about 99%. That's pretty good. Just to look at an iris, or something. So this guy must be a very good pupil. Thank you so much. Anyway, I don't know how he does it. If he passes it on, is it a skill you can teach? No idea. But yeah, so how do you determine if somebody's a Cohen? Tell me you're a Cohen, I guess you're a Cohen. Tell me you're a Levite, I guess you are. Okay. So um, the crown of the Torah is available to anybody. So not everybody can have the crown of leadership or the crown of kingship or the crown of priesthood, but the crown of the Torah or your faith-based text, taking it seriously, absorbing the messages, being anxious to pass it on to your family and to others in your generation, anybody can wear the crown of the Torah or their faith-based text. That is not restricted or limited to anybody. So, um, was it Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? I think we said, yeah. He said that there is a fourth crown, which we will get to in just a moment. And so let's say that none of us have the privilege of being a great scholar or a king or a high functionary. Okay? None of us have that, let's say. In our own places of worship or in our faith community, none of us have that. So what about the average Joe and Joanne? Can they achieve any proverbial crown at all, or do they remain crownless? Because they don't got the first three. So what happens to them now? They have no crown at all? No shot for any crown? Can they achieve any crown at all? And this is where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's genius makes a huge impact because he has another crown yet unnamed. And that is the crown of a good name, which means the crown of having a good reputation. When I think of that, I can't say I choke emotionally because that would be overstating it. But it is such a warm and sensitive way to deal with people um, who may feel. Let me just see. There's a message. Okay. Oh, we have to fly. Okay. Fly safely, Ryan. Just be well, and thank you for joining us. Yep. So there's a sensitivity about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai who doesn't really want to leave people out in the cold. He's talking about these great designations and everything, and he wants people to feel that some crown for them is attainable. And I think that's a very beautiful way of dealing with people and a beautiful lesson. So Rabbi Shimon is sharing with us that you can achieve greatness It may not be by leadership, kingship, priesthood, or becoming a scholar. You can achieve greatness by leaving this world with a crown of a good name. We've talked about this before. It's called in Hebrew a keter shem tov, the crown of a good name, the crown of showing exemplary behavior, decency, kindness, empathy. So you don't need to get an Academy Award or have a long list of honorary doctorates from top institutions of higher learning to earn the accolades of society. But if you can maintain a moral and ethical balance through all of the vicissitudes and roller coasters of life and still come out shining, you have achieved a great crown. It may not be the kind that appears in headlines, but it's a greatness that people take note of and by which they are inspired themselves to live a good, clean life. And again, it's called the crown of a good name. So here's an anecdote. I may have mentioned it before. In the synagogue that I served, last served before making Aliyah in Baltimore, there was a gentleman that I had not seen before. It was a Shabbat morning. Usual crowd shuffles in, as they say. And there's a gentleman sitting there. I never saw him before. So during the eating part after the services are over, the collation they call it, during the social hour, I go over to him. Hi, I'm Rabbi Adler. Who are you? And he says, oh, my name is whatever his name is. I said, oh, I haven't seen you here before. He said, I was here one time before. You may not have noticed, maybe you weren't here, but I decided to return today. Wow, thank you. That's really nice. We didn't go into membership. It's too early. So nice to have you. What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. That kind of a conversation. And then I said to him, have you been to congregations before? And he says, I haven't stepped in a shul. I haven't stepped in a synagogue in 44 years. That's a long time. A Jewish man hasn't been in a synagogue in 44 years. Then he says, oh, I have to qualify that. Except a couple of weeks ago, I went to the other synagogue where you also served years ago as an associate rabbi. I was there. And after I was there, I was told I should come here where you're the rabbi. I said, oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I said, the other synagogue that you went to a couple of weeks ago is huge. It's big. It's 1,300 families. They've got a summer camp of 1,000 kids. They've got a day school of 1,200 kids. Why? I'm surprised you weren't comfortable sitting there. And yet you chose to come here, which is 250 families, a lot smaller, pinchable. It's a pinchable synagogue. Oh, you're so cute, 250 families instead of 1,300. Why weren't you happy there that you decided you want to try here? He says, well, I'll tell you, when I was there, every Shabbat morning, I'm told that they had hundreds of people there, which is very nice. And every few minutes, they would let in another group of people so that when the rabbi was talking or the ark was opened, exposing the Torah scrolls, they didn't allow anybody in. And when the rabbi stopped talking, 8 hours later, when the rabbi stopped talking, or when the ark was closed, that's when they would let in the amount of people that built up since the last time they let people in. Oh, very interesting. He says, what I heard when people started walking in is people near me making the following comments to each other. Oh, you see that man with the brown suit and the little pocket kerchief? He is the CEO of whatever. And everybody around would go, ooh, oh, nice. Then another few people would say, oh, you see that lady over there with the. Her husband owns the blah, blah, blah. Oh, whoa, that's she. And he says that's how it went. That's how it went. People came in. Some people would identify the rich and famous, the ones who are very, very wealthy, the ones who are very well known. This one does a TV show. This one just won a marathon. That's how they describe the people walking in. He says, Now I come to your synagogue this morning, or last time, and again today. And you pretty much have the same kind of a thing. If the rabbi's talking, you just hold people at the door so it wouldn't interrupt the rabbi. Or when the ark is open, you hold people at the door. He says, when I hear people coming in, excuse me, here's what I hear people saying about some people coming in. You see that guy in the brown suit and the beautiful matching tie? I hear he is the most wonderful, patient doctor that people have ever gone to. Then another person comes in, and the people around me saying, Oh, you see that lady? That lady volunteers 50 hours a week at the local hospital. Can you believe that? 50 hours a week? And she can hardly stand, but she does 50 hours a week. That's amazing. So he's saying that all of the people coming into the synagogue where I was serving, they all had like beautiful things to say about the people, not about their status, not about their wealth, not about their job, all about their character. And this is exactly what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is saying. Not everybody can be a master of their faith text and be a scholar. Not everybody can wear the crown of kingship. Not everybody can wear the crown of priesthood. But anybody can wear the crown of a good name. You work on it, develop it, it radiates. It radiates. It radiated to the people in the pews. Oh, look who's here. Look who's coming in. This person volunteers or whatever. So I really think that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai offers a beautiful, beautiful teaching and gives everybody a shot at this major crown. To leave the world with a good reputation. I can't tell you how often I use this line in funerals when would give a eulogy. Most often when people died. I would give a eulogy and I would say, wow, Harold, I'm just picking out a name, Harold was 98 years old and everybody says he had the crown of a good name. He had an excellent, outstanding, consistent reputation. And then I would say, do you know how hard it is to live 98 years and have people talk about you for 98 years? All kinds of people talk about you for 98 years and still come out smelling like a rose. I mean, to me, that's an amazing achievement. You know, you may think of it as, yeah, yeah, okay, nice, very nice. That's a major achievement to live so many years, or as many years as God grants you, and come out where people say the nicest, kindest things about you. So, tip of the hat to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai for being so inclusive as to not need any special gifts from people. Just be a mensch. We mentioned that word first time I think we got together. Be a mensch. Just be a good, decent, kind, compassionate, sensitive, sweet human being, and you will have the crown of a good name. So, I'm going to take a sip of water and invite anybody to comment, to summarize, offer a critique, um, a story, anecdote, commentary, whatever you like. Any takers? Questions? Okay. Is it that clear that it's clear as a bell? If so, okay.
I have a question, Rabbi.
Excellent.
So, it's um, when you were talking in my brain, I kept hearing. I guess there's a maybe a Torah book, or like a particular translation. That there we go. Keter Crown. Are you familiar?
What's the first word?
Keter, like Keter,
Yes.
Crown.
Yes.
Does that sound familiar to you?
In the sense that the word keter, 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 means crown.
Okay, but so in my brain when you were talking, I just kept thinking about this translation of the Torah called Crown, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah, I wasn't sure what, but it was resonating. But
oh,
it seems like so like everything, everything that you were talking about today, right? At the end, it all came down to your name, your honor, your last name, like you giving your word, your oath. And so like it all seems to come back full circle. Like these other things, yes, we do hold in like high esteem,
yes.
but at the end of the day, your name, your word, your honor is where everything must rest. That's what I'm
Yes,
pulling from it.
and right, correct. So I'm not familiar with that translation, Keter uh, crown. Um, but yeah, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that the crown of a good name is above them all. And again, there are commentators who debate what does that mean above them all? Is the crown of a good name better than any one of the previous three, or is it better than all three put together? So there's a little bit of a discussion about that. But yeah, the crown of a good name is above them all, as if to say it's more important, more valuable. Because if you're a leader, king, priest, scholar, and nobody can trust you for one reason or another, can't be trusted. He quotes sources that never appeared anywhere in the universe, that kind of a thing. He quoted Galatians, whatever, the letters to Paul. He quoted so many sources. Yeah, but I was listening to the same quotes, and Galatians doesn't go up to that chapter, whatever it is. So, somebody that you can't trust, a leader that can't be trusted. What is good leadership without a good reputation? You're not going to be a very good leader if nobody can trust you. So maybe that's why he says it's even above. It's above all the other crowns because the other crowns may be close to meaningless if you don't have that good name. What's it worth to be the big poobah of whatever if you're not trusted? Nobody holds you in anything but contempt. What's it worth? You can't get far in those crowns without having a good name. So I think it's a magnificent teaching, and he gives the average person an opportunity to excel in something that is a beautiful thing to cultivate.
But it almost seems like what you were saying, and then I'll be done. But
No,
like it comes back to that being the standard,
yes,
like the beginning or the standard, and then
yes,
we come full circle, but back to the standard of that. And I don't
yes.
know. I just keep going back to it. So
No, I think you're accurate. I think you're
okay.
accurate. Those three crowns are great, but if it doesn't come back to that fourth crown, which is maybe what you perceive as the standard, the other three are not going to go that far. Almost might as well not wear them. Those crowns will be tarnished if you don't have a good name and a good reputation and a good reason for people to want to follow you as a leader, a priest, a king, a Torah scholar, a faith-based scholar, whatever. Who's going to want to follow all those leadership positions if you have no basic, solid, trustable reputation? So I think it's a beautiful, beautiful lesson. Any other comments, reactions?
Yes, sir.
Go
Uh,
ahead, Robert.
just, I just like to share or get a confirmation on misfolks. Would that come into having a good name and repentance, repenting of some of the sin that may happen in a person life? Would that be considered um, a good name, or what category would that, or would that be something totally different? But I'm really concerned about the mitzvahs aspect, where that would fit. Say a person is really doing his very best to do a good deed and do
Yes,
it daily, but come up a little short. And that's when I mentioned about the repentance part. Um, Whatever the reason that he came up short, he repented of it, and then he continues along the line of doing good deeds. Is there any place for a guy like that, or what category would that be in?
Yeah, it's a very good question. That would be in the category um, of God, in a sense, forgiving the lapse, whatever the lapse is, you know. Um, so take the imagery of Jacob having the dream with the ladder, right? Jacob has a dream with the ladder. A couple of Torah portions ago, he's dreaming. There's a ladder with angels going up and down. So some of the commentaries say, what, angels need a ladder to go up and down, right? Our perception of an angel is just fluttering. What do they need a ladder for? So some of the commentators say the ladder is an imagery for climbing rungs of spirituality. Climbing rungs of spirituality. You can't go from A to Z automatically, you know? I used to run youth seminars back in the day,
Yes.
7 days of concentrated, traditional Orthodox Jewish gathering, teaching, music, lessons, whatever. And at the end, those students who were not very connected before they came in, they would say, okay, I love this seminar. It was great. And when I get home to Pennsylvania, I'm going to tell my parents I want to keep a fully kosher home. And we would dissuade them from that. I mean, that's great. I guess we got through somehow. But to go from you're not traditional, your family's not traditional, and go from there to let's have a fully kosher home overnight, no, it's not healthy. Not healthy spiritually. It's too much of a leap. But a leap can also be done on ladders, on rungs.
Mm,
So these commentators point out that the imagery of the ladder is to remind us that God understands that we want to become angels by climbing rung by rung. And the teaching that goes along with that is that God would also understand as you're climbing, you can slip. You can slip on a rung. Oh, gee, what? Ah! That kind of thing. You can slip, you can be unsteady, whatever. Now the trick is that once you're unsteady and you've stabled yourself to keep climbing rung by rung. If that instability and that scared feeling causes you now to tumble back down to the bottom of the ladder, okay, God is the ultimate judge. He knows more than we know, all that, however he judges that. But I think the Jewish teaching is, and solidly so, that to have a lapse, to have a moment of stepping back from that journey that you're on, that you want to do rung by rung, it also has its place. It has its place, and it's forgiven, especially if you feel repentant about it. If you don't feel repentant about it, it's one thing. A kosher Jew is on his way to being a very strict, everything must be kosher inside the house, outside the house, and whatever. And then they go to a gas station and they've always wondered what a non-kosher roast beef sandwich tastes like. And you know something? I'm going to get it. I'm going to get that. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to taste it. And I'm going to enjoy it. And they buy it and they eat it and they taste it and enjoy it. And then they realize, "Oy, what the heck? What did I just do? What did I just do?" And they repent over it in whatever ways they do that. Prayer, charity, verbal um, confirmation of what they did. They might even cry about it. But if they get back on the wagon, there was something worthwhile about that lapse. Whatever it was, there might have been something worthwhile about taking that step back and maybe going back on the ladder stronger than you would have been without that lapse. So, does that touch on anything you were asking about?
yes, sir. It was really good. I was
Oh,
really concerned about, about the different crowns and what consisted of the crowns. The the A, B, C, and D of the crown. So
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
so that's good.
And
Thank you.
thank you, my pleasure. I'm glad.
Yes,
I'm glad I hit what you might have been interested in.
yes, sir.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the clock. There's the whole next lesson here, unless anybody has any questions about the previous one, which I'm happy to hear. So this may be a good, convenient place to stop because the next piece, has also something very, very important. I'll just whet your appetite and say there's a Rabbi Matya, would be spelled Matya, the son of Harash. He was a student of Rabbi Yishmael in the third and fourth century. And he has this teaching: be the first to greet everyone. Anybody have any questions on that? Be the first to greet everyone. And we're going to learn, what does that mean? Does that mean if you're in a marketplace, you have to be annoying and hi, 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 hello, 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 hello. Yeah, hi, hi. Does that mean to be annoying and a gadfly? Thank you, Brooke, for shaking your head. Yeah, we hope it does not mean that. So we have to discover, what does it mean? What does it mean to be the first? And why is that important? Why is it important to be the first to greet other people? And what we're going to find out is something that I did during my years as an active rabbi in America. I also like to greet people, but if I saw somebody who had more than like 1 or 2 second eye contact with me, for whatever reason, they didn't say a word, they just eye contact. In Hebrew, it's called arba einayim, 4 eyes. My two, their two. 4 eyes, contact of 4 eyes. If it was there for 1 or 2 seconds, my automatic response was, hello, good morning. As opposed to somebody who was just ready to pass me and paid no attention, didn't look, whatever. I don't know that I would feel so moved, pressured to say, hi, good morning. But if somebody's already taken a moment or two for whatever reason, I could have broccoli in my teeth, I could have some earwax, who knows? My nose is dripping and I don't have a tissue, whatever it is, a moment or two of 4 eyes, me at my two and their two, that would suggest to me I'd like to say hello. Hi, good morning. Hello. So the next time we get together on the 24th, thank you, Bob, the 24th of December, we will continue with this teaching, and I will also share with you a very painful episodes as a rabbi in Baltimore, um, it, which is connected to people not greeting me, which made me very upset. Well, I'll describe the whole scenario to you, but it's worth repeating because it was a very painful episode, and it did not have a satisfying outcome. So I can tell you that. In any case, thank you for joining us today. Any closing remarks, comments, questions, critique? Um, if not, I want to wish you a good week. Be happy, healthy, and safe wherever you are. And Shabbat Shalom eventually at the end of the week. And just be well. And gosh, we'll see you in 3 weeks. I can't believe that. If you want to write something on the group, question or something to me personally, I'm available. It's just that the next 2 Wednesday nights for me represent a challenge. So take care and shalom.
God bless everyone. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.